Disclaimer, this video is not meant to bring any hate towards anyone or anything mentioned in this video. I have no intentions of spreading that or doing that, nor am I responsible for any type of harassment that comes. That is not my fault, and please do not put the blame on that for me. And also, I have no ill will towards any of the creators I'm making in this video. Any pure my personal opinion on the creator I'm making on is that I really don't really have one. If anything, this essay feels more like a cheap video that was made at the time just to justify the excuse of Jurassic World. It's by no it's by no means meant to do that. And I know some people tend to get the wrong idea. And I thought I have gotten some people to ask me to make sure I put these disclaimers. So I want to make that clear that I am by no means not trying to spread hate. I don't believe, or am I trying to spread harassment? If there is any harassment that arises from my video, that is not my fault. And please, I have nothing to do with that.
This video is sponsored by the Great Courses Plus.
Alan.
Welcome to Jurassic World.
Jurassic Park is an undeniable classic made by an iconic filmmaker at the peak of his career. It won 3 Academy Awards, revolutionized the capability of visual effects in film, and after 25 years, Jurassic Park is still just as thrilling and entertaining as it was when it was first released. The commercial and critical success of Jurassic Park spawned an entire franchise of games, toys, and 4 subsequent films, but none of those sequels have been able to recapture the magic of the first film. But why is that? Where did this franchise go wrong? In this essay, I'm going to dive into the Jurassic Park series, comparing the original masterpiece to its mediocre sequels, until finally pinpointing the moment I believe Jurassic Park died.
Hold on to your butts.
When discussing the sequels, there's a handful of common complaints. None of the characters appear to have any logic. After all, they keep choosing to go back time and time again to Death Island, full of carnivorous dinosaurs running amok.
I don't really know how you expect them to make a sequel if they're not going to go back. And regardless of whether or not you think that specific plot point is stupid and them always going back to the island is just stupid, it doesn't really make any sense since that is one of the messages about how we keep repeating our same mistakes within the Jurassic World franchise. About even if you have good intentions, you still will make the same mistakes. This is very well self-explanatory. It's not that hard to understand. And also to point out another thing, like it's the dinosaurs aren't hard to contain. It's not that hard to just keep them in confinement. Even but even then you can consider the first film to be dumb since John Hammond was naive and basically killed a lot of people, even though it wasn't, and you could say it was his fault for all of what happened, even though it wasn't totally a dumb idea. I like You're going to have to critique Jurassic Park if you're going to want to critique this, since the characters do stupid things, and that's the point. It's a cautionary tale, and this feels kind of self-explanatory. I don't really need to say anything more.
Any engaging moral debate surrounding science and ethics is gone. And let's not forget about random characters suffering cruel and brutal deaths, usually reserved for the main villain. I mean, I get that she was a mediocre babysitter, but damn.
Yes, there are moral debates and tons of ethical questions that are raised in all of the movies within the Jurassic World trilogy, e- even Rebirth. Even Rebirth at least gave us some questions with the ethics of medical care, even though if it was one-dimensional and one-sided. And also, again, yeah, isn't that the point of a death to make us feel bad? Because the fact that so many people felt bad for Sarah just is kind of the point, since yeah, sure, she wasn't great at being a babysitter, but the fact that so many people felt that way towards her even though she didn't really do a good job and still kind of like put and was a bit negligent, she still did a good job. Well, no, not a good job like with her job, but like she did a good job with her death where people felt bad for her even with her flaws. And I would say that's actually a really good death if you can make people feel that way without it feeling like she without it feeling like she like it felt like impactful even though she wasn't a good person and even though we never knew her for that long. And it was only for like and we only knew her for like 3 minutes of the entire film. That's kind of the point.
Those are all justifiable complaints, but I want to focus on two main elements which were present in the original film but severely lacking in the sequels: spectacle and suspense. First, spectacle. It's impossible to sustain the same sense of awe and wonder across multiple installments. Whether it's Middle Earth, Hogwarts, or a galaxy far, far away, the excitement of entering a new world for the first time can never be replicated. That initial feeling of arriving on Isla Nublar, entering the gates of Jurassic Park, and seeing full-size dinosaurs is incredible. But the Jurassic Park sequels have never been close to recreating that same sense of awe. The premise of humans surviving on a dinosaur-infested island is difficult to build on, which is why every sequel feels like it's retreading on tired ground.
That's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
That single sentence perfectly encapsulates the structure of every single Jurassic Park movie.
Again, this is not true and almost like this just isn't true. Not in the slightest. Since like all of the films are completely different and have their own standalone things. Just because dinosaurs are going around chasing people and killing people isn't like a valid excuse to say it's the same. Because like that's just an extremely boring excuse for everything. If that's all there is. Like that isn't really like that's kind of just also disingenuous and just comes across as a bit annoying. Like, look, you don't have to be you don't have to be a genius to understand that. But like, yeah, they're dinosaurs, and of course that's what the film is about. Obviously, if it wasn't about dinosaurs, then it would be really boring. It's not like they'll just make a entire series and then make some of the main villains have entire robots that can capture dinosaurs and everything. Oh, wait! Oh, right. Yeah, like, I mean, the Jurassic World franchise did do it with Camp Cretaceous, where they did give robots, like, chasing humans, while there were still dinosaurs doing it. Robots were doing it as well, and it's like, yeah, it feels out of place. If you want to it's just a completely ridiculous point, and usually these same people will then criticize Jurassic World and the other films for these reasons. Even though it's such an ignorant way to look at the film, even though there's so much more to it than just that.
Apparently, Michael Crichton, writer of the Jurassic Park novels, tried working with the screenwriters on Jurassic Park 3, but left after only a few days when he couldn't come up with a satisfactory idea. Without any real interesting direction to take the series, the creators have relied heavily on nostalgia. By connecting these inferior sequels to the original classic, the creators are hoping to direct their audience away from the larger story issues towards shiny distractions in the form of mementos. Mementos that are tied to emotional memories in the audience from their experience of watching the original film. But the problem is, these sequels have done nothing to earn these emotional responses on their own. They've merely taken the original film and squeezed every drop of nostalgia from it like blood from a stone. It's lazy, undisciplined writing.
This is misleading. So the reason, I feel like this kind of deserves its own video about Michael Crichton's involvement with the Jurassic Park sequels, with The Lost World and Free. And the issue is that with The Lost World was already a bit of a weird one to adapt because in the first book, Ian Malcolm dies. Like is a dead man after that, since like he dies pretty. And plus, also at the end of Jurassic Park in the book, it ends with the dinosaurs getting to the mainland, which is a plot point that wouldn't happen until Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Like we had to wait like a full on like nearly 25 years until we can get that. Like that's just insane. And plus, the thing is that like there wasn't really any other choice like that they really could have done, because like they kind of had to make it more of a loose adaptation, or else they would have had to retcon things from the original movie. And also, it's a bit misimplying to imply that in the film that everybody was involved in that. Like as in like it was just from a nostalgia, nothing else, which is misleading since there are still plenty of new ideas within here, but to act as if there aren't just feels like, and to just act like that's all there is like extremely speculative and just wrong.
Ian Malcolm puts it this way in the original Jurassic Park.
You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it.
Whereas the original stood as an expertly crafted film in its own right, the sequels merely stand on the shoulders of the original. Remember Sam Neill and Laura Dern? Remember the T-Rex? Remember the Raptors? Remember that one scientist? Remember the park? They're all just the same tired details played out over and over and over again.
Again, I'm kind of a bit annoyed with how much people take that scene about Ian talking with like Hammond out of context. The point of the scene was that he was talking about like the dangers of unspecified discipline, and about how like John Hammond and like his investors just didn't really consider about how much it can do. Like they just didn't really consider that, which was the issue. The issue wasn't that he was marketing it or like did any of that, but the issue comes down to the fact that that they didn't think about the should have, or didn't really consider about how much it can do. Like they just didn't really consider that, which was the issue. The issue wasn't that he was marketing it or like did any of that, but the issue comes down to the fact that that they didn't think about the should have or the ramifications of their actions. And Ian wasn't talking about like them being over consumerized or anything. He was just talking about just like making the dinosaurs without considering that. He wasn't talking about something that could be applied to sequels. He was speaking more in general about how they don't really consider how dangerous their consequences can be. Like that's it. So like I don't get why so many people use that scene to try to like point out the issues with Jurassic World, even though like that just isn't true and the scene had nothing to do with anything like that. Like I don't get it. And also, again, I've already talked about like the nostalgia. This is not true, and it's a complete exaggeration. Um, if Colin Trevorrow admitted in an interview that if he really wanted to bring back the original cast, he could have done it back in Jurassic World. The only reason why Dr. Wu was the only one to come back was that he felt like he was the most relevant to the narrative. So if we just had Alan Grant here, then what he's basically implying is that Alan Grant, Ellie, and Ian, while Ian makes a cameo in that film, he the point is that like the point is that they wouldn't have added anything in Jurassic World, and Ian like had stuff to say about and Ian was more about the philosophy side of Jurassic World, so then they have him in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. But then they brought him back in Dominion because already like the original Jurassic Park trilogy was already kind of a mess. and it really wasn't all that great. And like and so like say what you want about Dominion, but at least it cleared up all of the characters and brought everybody together. And at least it fixed most of the plot threads, unlike other films, since the only it fixed most of the issues and cleared up a lot of plot threads that would have otherwise been left unthreaded. That is the point.
Which leads me to the next element lacking in the sequels. Second, suspense. In a sense, Jurassic World serves as a thinly veiled metaphor for the relationship between the Jurassic Park series and its audience.
No one's impressed by a dinosaur anymore.
After 25 years, dinosaurs just aren't as exciting as they once were. And as the creators desperately seek for a way to extend this profitable series, they believe that they can fix the problem by throwing more and more dinosaurs on the screen. And not just more dinosaurs, but bigger and scarier dinosaurs.
This is not true as I've gosh dang it. As I've explained in multiple videos, the dinosaurs, and well, at least what Claire said in Jurassic World was clearly not her being 100% she wasn't being exactly accurate here, since it's clear she was really only doing it for money. It was at its core only really done for money. That's really all it was and what it was done for. And if anything, ironically, the Jurassic World franchise is probably one of the greatest critiques of sequels, where you can interpret the entire film as an allegory for sequels like The Fast and Furious, where it just gets more and more ridiculous each time. Like that's kind of the point, because everything just gets more and more ridiculous over time. But with Jurassic World, it critiqued the idea that dinosaurs are enough, that you do not need hybrids to have something as great as that. You do not need everything else, because you have dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are really cool, regardless of where they come from or your age. Like, everyone likes dinosaurs. Well, at least a lot of people like dinosaurs since they're cool, and everyone, because they're these cool, tough predators that are basically used to be at the top of the world that can no longer compare to our usual dinosaurs. That's what makes these so much more interesting. That is what makes Jurassic World Jurassic World. That despite that, dinosaurs are still just as great as they are, even without that. And even if the park was declining, dinosaurs are still dinosaurs, and you don't need anything else but that. That's the message it's trying to say. And it's just which is just so ironic that people just use very cheap criticisms to ignore what these films have to say, and just masquerade it these issues like they exist.
Jurassic Park 3 introduced the Spinosaurus, which killed the once dominant T-Rex handedly, and then both Jurassic World films introduced a new dinosaur hybrid in hopes of ratcheting up the action. It's the often misguided philosophy that more is better, but I'd argue the opposite. Some of the greatest villains in film history are barely present on the screen. Darth Vader is on screen for 10 minutes in A New Hope, the Wicked Witch, 12 minutes in The Wizard of Oz, Hannibal Lecter, 16 minutes in The Silence of the Lambs, the Xenomorph, 5 minutes in Alien, and the shark is only visible on screen for 4 minutes in Jaws. What makes a monster terrifying isn't necessarily their presence, but the anticipation of their presence. Out of Jurassic Park's 127-minute runtime, dinosaurs are only present on screen for 15 minutes, by far the lowest amount out of the entire Jurassic Park series. And this is crucial because the other time should be dedicated to the main characters, their relationships, drama, themes, motivations, stakes, and arcs. These are the aspects that coalesce to make engaging stories, not bigger, scarier dinosaurs.
Same with the Indominus Rex and even the Indoraptor. Both of these villains only showed up for basically a certain part in the film, and they weren't taking up too much. For example, the Indoraptor was only present after the half mark and was only used selectively. And same with, the Indominus Rex, where for for like the first 25 minutes, we didn't see it and we didn't even know what it was. And it was just building up towards it, which was the point. The point about what made the Indominus Rex scary was that we knew so much about it, yet we knew so little because we couldn't see it with our own eyes. All we knew was that it seemed to be white of some kind, and then when we saw it, it was like this like it was like a dinosaur, but it's not really a dinosaur, which is how I saw it at least, since I that's kind of the point of what it's trying to make. Like, mm, that's clearly what they're trying to do. It's like, just think of it like that. That's more or less the main point. And another thing is that, like, this Jurassic Park and the Jurassic World films is like an Alien to Aliens type of sequel, where we've already seen this tons of times and we've already known this. So, like, why would we spend like so much time on like uh why would we spend so much time like building up the dinosaurs even though we already knew what they were? Because yeah, like you said it yourself, we once you're entrenched in this world the first time, it can be hard to go back. Because like when you're using something like in a film, like when you use shock factor as a joke or as something serious, you have to use it sparingly and when it's worthwhile in like a first installment. Then you can be a bit more like, then once it's normal and gets more better over time, then you can be like, okay, this is normal, it's fine now. Like, that's clearly the point of what's going on here.
Think about the first time we see a full-size dinosaur in Jurassic Park. Spielberg doesn't immediately focus on the dinosaur, he focuses instead on the characters, their emotional reactions, the look of awe on their faces. Because Jurassic Park isn't a film about dinosaurs, it's a film about characters struggling for survival from dinosaurs. A villain is only as good as the characters engaging with it. And in Jaws and later Jurassic Park, Spielberg understood this delicate balance. But unfortunately, Spielberg forgot all about this in his sequel, The Lost World. And I believe the third act of The Lost World is the moment Jurassic Park died.
Again, even all of the films after that still had character arcs, while Jurassic Park 3 didn't do a good job with its characters, and I don't really like it all that much considering like the poor acting and a lot of other issues. I would say that they, in general, did a passable job in Jurassic Park 3, but again, that's Jurassic Park 3 and nobody likes it. And then there's The Lost World, and then Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, and then the other two. Ignoring those two since this came out around the time of Fallen Kingdom. Um, this all of the characters here had character arcs and then eventually they had to survive in some way, like Gray, who had to learn about learn about like caring about his brother since he didn't since he was since like he kind of was a bit dismissive towards everything. And the fact that also like with the whole divorce subplot in Jurassic World, there's also Owen who like has to learn to trust his raptors within the in Jurassic World, and then there's Claire who has to learn to respect the animals as animals, and that they're just as important as her, and that you can't just treat them as lesser creatures. And then in Fallen Kingdom, like there were still like character arcs about like that expanded upon the themes where even Mills pointed out like all of Owen's and Claire's flaws about like that they were partly responsible, and I agree with Mills here that he was right about Owen and Claire, that they still partly didn't really consider their actions just as much as Hammond and tons of other characters, even like Jeff Goldblum, didn't consider theirs.
Died. From the very beginning of the Jurassic Park series, Spielberg stated how he never wanted to make a monster movie.
Jurassic Park wasn't a monster movie. It was a movie about animals long ago gone extinct that through the miracle of science and technology are brought into the 20th century. And that really fascinated me, and that immediately set my own template for not making this a monster movie.
Monster movies are generally disregarded as a genre because they most commonly consist of monsters attacking flat, boring characters. And while the original Jurassic Park successfully avoided this comparison, the sequels have lost track of what made the first film so dynamic. Now, instead of interesting characters wrestling with moral, ethical arguments about the repercussions of playing with science, the series has turned into simple stories of dinosaurs killing uninteresting characters. While rewatching The Lost World, I was surprised to find that it's not as terrible as I once remembered. The scene with the two T-Rexes and the camper is as terrifying and expertly crafted as anything in the original film. But I'd have to say that the turning point in the entire series happens in the third act, when the T-Rex terrorizes San Diego. The original ending for The Lost World consisted of the main characters fleeing the island in the helicopter and then battling pterodactyls in a climactic action sequence. But then, Spielberg decided to change the ending.
I called Dave and I said, hey, let's throw out the whole last act and let's just somehow find a way to bring the T-Rex back to America. So kind of on a whim, we worked that into the story and ended the picture in the US.
Changing the ending on a whim not only resulted in a mediocre, disconnected product. For instance, there was a whole scripted section about raptors killing the entire crew of the ship transporting the T-Rex, which was never filmed. But yet, we still saw the pieces of their dismembered bodies, which never made sense. And Nick, played by Vince Vaughn, the game hunter, and Malcolm's daughter are completely absent from the third act, without any character arc or meaningful resolution. But larger than those issues, Spielberg lost sight of his entire mission behind the Jurassic Park series. It was no longer about the characters and science, it had devolved into a monster movie. And it sounds like Spielberg slowly realized this during production of The Lost World. I beat myself up, growing more and more impatient with myself. It made me wistful about doing a talking picture, because sometimes I got the feeling I was just making this big silent roar movie. I found myself saying, is that all there is? It's not enough for me. And that's exactly how I feel when I watch every Jurassic Park sequel. Is that all there is? It's not enough for me. It's disappointing because every subsequent film feels like a wasted opportunity for something truly unique and special. But until the creators realize how to effectively interject spectacle and suspense into the Jurassic Park films once again, I'm afraid that this endangered franchise will eventually become extinct.
You have to keep in mind that, like, you have to have, like, during, you during Jurassic World, like, you're gonna have to keep it. No, during The Lost World, the reason why the plot was like that was because, like, it was kind of a clumbled mess, since there was a lot of production issues and the fact that, like, they had to cut out some films, and, like, the Lost World's production just wasn't really all that great, and it had a lot of issues behind the scenes. And same with Jurassic Park 3, which had the same issues, with it having a lot of production issues behind the scene and it just being a total mess, and a disformed mess of constant issues. Like, it just doesn't work. The film is, like, it just doesn't work for a lot of different reasons, and it leads to a lot of misunderstandings. So, like, that's the issue here. And also, Jurassic Park had the same thing where they originally wanted the um team of, of Hammond and everyone else to actually kill the two individual raptors on their own, and which this was already something that was planned but was again scrapped, which I brought up in another video. So then they changed it and moved the T-Rex there because they wanted, like, the film to have the T-Rex more in it, because originally it didn't have it much at all, and that they felt like the raptors were the stars instead of the actual T-Rex, since besides this he really only had, like, the breakout and the Gallimimus scene. That's really all when the T-Rex shows up. That's actually about it. And so, like, of course, sometimes, directors are gonna do something because they think it's cool. Like, obviously, like, if there wasn't, like, a level of cool factor that was involved when in the production process, then there wouldn't really have been a point. That's kind of like how we watch things, and that we want them to be cool, new, and unique. That's just how, like, it works behind the scenes, at least. So I don't really see how that's unfair.